You don't have to get it all out right now.
I never saw her before. Like,
you didn't see the girl before either? So the guy and the girl you don't know?
She's my boss.
Okay.
He's Valerie's mom. But I never seen it before. Like, it's a lot of fun.
And what a case this is going to be. The Au Pair Affair murder trial is already trending in the world of true crime, and the case hasn't even started. It starts next week. Here are the facts. Prosecutors say that Christine Banfield was killed in an elaborate murder plot set up by her husband, Brendan, who's an IRS agent, by the way. State alleges that Brendan wanted to run off with the family's au pair. Her name is Juliana Magalhães. And he came up with this plan, so police say, to lure another man, a stranger really, over to the family's home by using a fake fetish website profile, essentially catfishing him. And that led the man to believe that he was actually meeting up with a woman to have consensual sex, right? So once police arrive, they find the wife, Christine, stabbed to death, and the strange man who thought he was just coming over to have a good time, Joseph Ryan, shot to death. So 2 people are dead here. 2 people are also charged in this case. The au pair also already pleaded her case out. She pled to manslaughter charges. We understand she has also turned state's evidence and going to testify against her former lover. The husband, his trial, Brendan Banfield, that defendant, he's set to go on Monday. So this case, it's so wild, so many twists and turns. It started up a conversation in our Court TV newsroom about au pairs and whether having an au pair can invite an affair. So let's bring in someone to tackle that question, psychotherapist and CEO of Life Counseling Solutions, Dr. Janie Lacey. And of course, we've got some questions about the upcoming trial. For that, we're going to talk to celebrity attorney John Phillips. Good morning to you both. Okay, Dr. Janie, with the question, can an affair be invited by the dynamic that's created in the house with an au pair?
I would say, Julie, no. But the arrangement can create risk factors when a marriage is already vulnerable. So when we think about an au pair, she's living in the home 24/7. She's witnessing the family's most vulnerable moments. And she depends on the employer for housing, for food, for a visa. So this can create opportunity for exploitation and not necessarily an invitation. And I think about when a wife is exhausted, you know, in this case, she's an ICU nurse doing real life. You know, an au pair can represent escape and admiration without marital baggage. So to me, this is classic affair psychology, Julie. And we know that he had a pattern. He had multiple women confirm that Banfield had affairs throughout his marriage. And this wasn't about the au pair. It was about him. And she was 22 and 23. So she was foreign. She was dependent on him. He was 37, a law enforcement in control. Anyone inviting this, it was Brendan Banfield exploiting the dynamic. So the au pair didn't invite the affair. I think Brandon exploited a very vulnerable person who was dependent on him, Julie, for her livelihood and her visa. And that's not seduction, that's manipulation.
Oh, this is so fantastic, Dr. Janie. This is why we wanted to bring you on the show, because I think many of us were thinking you were going to say, yes, this does. Watch out for those au pairs. But John Phillips, still think of it like in legal terms, as Dr. Janie was talking, I'm going, oh, yeah, okay, so this isn't entrapment. This is just fine. We're not, you know, asking someone to do something they weren't already predisposed to do. If this guy is a cheater and philanderer, who knows? John, tell me, legally, does he have a chance?
Ooh, every Wednesday night when I get my Thursday night stories, I'm like, whoa, what a case. And this one I was like, what the heck? And of course, I'd say it hits close to home, but I do have 3 boys. We have considered an au pair. You know, any male is like, well, maybe we get a ugly, like, domestic woman. Like, you bring somebody in, you do have psychological and emotional boundaries being tested. But yeah, this was him. You know, this was his issue, and Magalhães has a choice. She can go down with him, or she can try to, you know, use the system as best as possible to say, all right, I got the Oscar for my initial performance, but let me be clear, he did it. And you know, that's the only way to save herself at this point, because right now, holy moly, what are people thinking?
Right, John. You can't make this stuff up. You really can't. You're right. One story is crazier than the next. This is so awful that this actually happened. It reads something like a fiction crime novel or something, but no, this is true crime. And to your point about, who do you hire? Do you hire somebody that, maybe you don't think is hot? We had that conversation in the newsroom. Dr. Janey, I would imagine you may have couples you counsel, who somebody doesn't want a hot au pair in the house because we might think an affair comes next. Talk to us, please, about that and how that can strain relationships.
I think what couples should fear is the warning signs in their own marriage, Julie. I mean, quite frankly. So I don't think we should demonize au pairs or babysitters, right? Millions of family have healthy professional relationships with au pairs. And this case was about two people allegedly conspiring to murder, right? So the arrangement was context, but it's not cause. I think the real threat here was the husband, right? Statistically, women are most at risk from intimate partners, not strangers, not employees. And Christine's greatest danger was sleeping next to her, right? So in this case, boundaries matter for families hiring live-in help. I think, as my co-panelist said, clear expectations, having open spousal communication and addressing your marital issues before bringing someone into your home. So I think, Juliana, she participated, obviously we're seeing this going to play out next week. But this case to me wasn't about fearing au pairs or people coming into your home. It's about what happens when someone decides their spouse is disposable. And when you find a vulnerable person to help them act that out, that's not an indication of au pairs or babysitters. That's an indication of him in this case, in my opinion, Julie.
Yes, well said, Dr. Janey. Yes, you heard it straight from the expert. Don't fear the au pairs. There are many wonderful au pairs out there. I know somebody who worked as an au pair for a time and was a godsend to the family that she helped so much. And so, yes, we're certainly not speaking generally. Let's speak a little more in detail about this case. John Phillips, I want to share some details with you, get your thoughts here. Some more about the accusations against Banfield and his mistress, the au pair. So they were involved in a romantic relationship, police confirm, at the time of the murders. They were both, police say, behind that fake profile. They posed as the wife, Christine, so police say. So they made it look like it was her wanting to meet strange men to act out a rough sex rape fantasy, is what police reported. Joseph Ryan thought he was meeting up to do this consensual, act out this fantasy, brought a knife with him, police say, for that reason. And here's the icing on the cake. This couple's 4-year-old daughter was in the house at the time of the homicides. Now, the wife, police say, didn't know anything about this plot, that this was going to go down. So, of course, this is a normal day for her and the au pair to both be there. But to think about it, if this sinister plot was hatched by Dad, to have it in the house with his kid there? John, your thoughts?
No. And when somebody's talking about an au pair case, there are children, right? You don't have an au pair unless you're going to need nannying or babysitting or long-term care of children. And so in the stories, they don't talk about the children. But the fact that that child was there, is just appalling. And it goes to the moral decay and degradation of this IRS agent. Like, this is somebody that's in a position of trust. And so this case has so many unspeakables that are just offensive. And again, yeah, it's not an indictment on the au pair community, but when you bring people over from the country, and I think she was, one of those that otherwise don't have the surroundings and the structure, sometimes they are susceptible to bad decisions and coercive control. Mm-hmm. And it's horrible, horrible.
Yeah, so well said, John. I can't wait to see how she testifies. You were right. She can either really help herself here and try to get out and have somewhat of a normal life ahead of her, or she can go down with them. The choice is going to be hers next week. This case starts.
Cheat. Don't cheat, folks. And don't kill like, come on.
Yeah, don't cheat, don't kill. Yeah, if you want to cheat, go get a divorce. Call John Phillips, he'll help you out. I know. This is something, call Dr. Janie, she'll help you out too to save the marriage. If you want to try not to get divorced, you guys are the best. Thank you.